We are live. How's it going, everybody? How's it going, Pat? You are
It's going okay.
looking.
How's it going, Dan?
It's going well. You looks like you're in a kind of a white void there of some sorts.
I
Very
am.
white.
I'm broadcasting from home today because I we have somebody stopping by the house today to repair the dishwasher. In case everyone wants to know
Mm.
my day in the life of me. So we're doing this broadcast from home instead of joining you at the office. But I do feel a little bit like I'm in the world of John Oliver here in the White Void. That was right,
Yes, that
maybe,
it
kind
is.
of.
I think his line is coming to you from this white void again, or something like that. It's always.
Yeah, something.
It's I look forward to him every Sunday night. He's got to be the one of the most. He goes deep into politics, and it's you have to, and he goes so fast, and he's so intelligent. You just have to really listen. It's not like a sit back and John Stewart style, who I loved as well, but with John Oliver, you need to be at full attention. He's very good at what he
Yeah,
does.
without a doubt. And how he kind of weaves
Well,
in humor
welcome.
into everything,
Yeah, yeah. He is clever like that.
obviously.
Welcome everybody. I've seen a lot of people starting to. Well, sorry, what's that? Oh, I
Nothing.
missed what you said, Pat. Oh, okay. A lot of people starting to come on. So today we have Stephan Vincent, who is a good friend and will be an awesome guest. I'll talk a little more about him in a moment. He's the chief rebellion officer at the People First community, amongst a handful of other things. So we'll introduce him later. He probably can't come on till about 12:20 ish, maybe. Well, sorry, I'm not doing the translation. In about 20 minutes, because we have a very global crowd here. We will bring him live. So until then, Pat, you and I have to fill time. We have to talk as brothers. Get some real talk going here.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. And I just saw someone, Elsa just posted, hi everyone, happy Earth Day.
That's
That's right, it is Earth
it.
Day today.
It
Thanks
is
for the
Earth
reminder.
Day. Thank you for that reminder. That reminds me. I remember playing a show on Earth Day. It was when I was going to college. We had a big. It was my first big show because we played with, I think, Pat, the Gear Daddies. Do you remember the Gear Daddies? A local
Sure,
band.
sure, yeah.
So they were headlining, and we played. And I was my freshman year at college. Um, and we were kind of just a local. We played at the student union and we played around town. But they asked us to play this gig, and it was really fun, and it was Earth Day, and I remember we were all wearing green shirts and Happy Earth Day shirts. So just brought back a memory. Um, so let me just kick off some what our focus is today, and it's been a powerful week. That's the first word that comes to mind. It's been, I think, a week where incredible progress was made, um, but not without a lot of pain and a lot of hard work and a recognition that there's so much more work to do. And and so I think we can celebrate the moment, um, and specifically, of course, I'm talking about the verdict that came in with the George Floyd murder. Um, but what we want to talk about today, and a big part of our conversation today, is a big piece of this, which is the power of community, right, and the power of perseverance. Um, and those are two incredible concepts we're going to talk about, and the power of strength. And we're going to really weave this into a conversation, a much larger conversation about culture, organizations, commitment. Um, but Pat, I thought you and I could. We are in Minneapolis for those who might not know, and it's so this is hometown for us. Pat, I thought we could talk a little bit about community and what that means to us, and how that's influenced our lives in positive ways and ways that have been challenging too. But typically when a community works together, it's a positive thing. Um, so, I kind of want to just go broad first, um, and ask you, Pat. I'll interview you as my older brother. What does community mean to you, and how has community influenced really who you are? And I know, your um, activism is in your blood, and you have incredible strength and commitment to your ideas and your ideals. So how has community influenced you and supported you?
Yeah, well, when I think of community, I mean, immediately my brain thinks of the different kinds of communities that I'm a part of and how those different kinds of communities each support me with different kind of pillars of my life. Um, there's, in no particular order, there's my artistic community. So, many of my friends are artists and across the spectrum, visual artists and dancers and filmmakers, and there's many many people there, and I spend a lot of time with that community. And that community serves me in exposing me to new different ways to frame and think about things. I find it helps to scramble my brain. It keeps me out of traditional ways of thinking, and sometimes I just get to kind of hang out with that community and be amongst those different kinds of thinkers, and I know it helps me do better work and be a better human.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm collaborating explicitly with people in that community. So if I'm working on making a movie or playing in a band, I don't know why I forgot musicians in the world of artists. And
Yeah.
yeah, and within that kind of artist world, there's subcultures too. Like I think about the dance community. My wife is a dancer. I spend a lot of time with them. It's like such a powerful community. It's working hard to comment and provide kind of an understanding physically on kind of the life in the world we live in. And then I think about my filmmaking community, where I've been spending a lot of time recently, and we're really wrestling with many of the issues of the day and using the power of story and allegory to help us sort of gain an understanding in that. And none of that happens without incredible commitment of people working together, and leadership, creative leadership that's helping to kind of frame this and organize it and inspire. And then I think of
Yeah.
community in business, and broadly first, as an entrepreneur, I have a huge network of just entrepreneurs that aren't even necessarily HR people, but folks that are committed to creating something out of nothing as we work to build businesses. And then there's our HR community and our clients within that community. And one of the reasons I love that community so much is we're all focused around this mission and this is why it's so great to have our guest today, Stephan, really focused on making work a better place and helping people do their best work. And because we spend so much time there with work, and then there's family, and then there's neighbors. Anyway, I could go on and on, but I
Yeah.
just I know that when you take the time to contemplate and acknowledge those different communities that you're in, and understand, kind of think about what you give to them and what you get back from them, and how they serve you and your priorities in life. I think there's real power in that in a life for me. So
Yeah.
I would not be where I am today without the incredible strength of community. And you know how it is, you get in a jam or something happens or you need help. And we've talked about many of these stories here on the show. That's where that community is there to help you, and vice versa. I mean, I'm there to help people in my community. So there's strength. There is strength, and as we'll talk about, perseverance,
Yeah.
kind of associated around community.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great description. I think the one thing about community is there is no there where community sort of reaches an end point, right? The concept of community is we're constantly evolving, and we're constantly learning from each other, and we're challenging each other
Mhm.
respectfully, and
Yeah.
we're growing together, right? With that North Star, this is what we believe is a better place. This is what we believe is a better thing. This is what we believe, is a better direction. And to get there, right, it requires the individual voice, and the individual voice is amplified with the collective voice of the community. And I think that is so
Mhm.
incredibly powerful. And that is why, grassroots community efforts ultimately are some of the biggest change makers that we see in society. I mean, some of the biggest changes. Uh, I might even argue to say the biggest changes come from grassroots movements over time, and it takes a long, long time, but it takes commitment and that perseverance, and it takes incredible strength, right? And I think that's, um, yeah, no, that's a great summary of that. And you know, when Stephan comes on, I'll just quickly read his people first community that he's created, and it's, as he defines it, it's a grassroots community of conscious leaders and HR rebels building a better workplace together. So it really just snaps into the conversation perfectly of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And
oh,
then,
go ahead, Pat.
I was going to say, yeah, and just, and as we'll talk, I'm sure with Stefan, this is, the work we do at RADICL is directly in sort of support of these noble efforts that people like Stefan are doing, which is then how do we go from sort of grand ideas and then sort of really break this down into a science, a strategy, and approach that works. And I think to use the analogy of activism, because that's something that's really, it's right there for us to look at the way you described, Dan. You think of the literally decades of work around racial justice that have been going on, since, I mean, for like, it's been more
Right.
like, 140 years of it or more, 150 years. But there's that, there's the grand ideas, and then how does it really break down into those pieces where those different components that a community all kind of pieces together toward a common cause where things actually happen
Yeah.
and
Well, and
can,
I think that's
change.
so important for everyone to remember and always sit back and reflect on it. And it wasn't one day of protesting or rallies. It wasn't 1 month. It wasn't 6 months. It wasn't 1 year. It wasn't. It was. It's been years and years. Right. I mean, this decision, which was monumental. Again, it is just one step in a very, very long process we have. But it didn't start with George Floyd. George Floyd amplified the absolute commitment and the need to rally, but this has been going on, and there's been so much work and so many people who have been a part of this movement and community, um, like you said, Patty, for years and years and decades. So, I think we always have to just recognize that hard work and that commitment. And sometimes the results we're hoping for, we're not going to see in our lifetime, right? But if we can make
Yeah.
a small step forward and a small movement forward, that's the power of community. Um, so thanks, some additional people joining. Chris, Reese, good to see you. I'm just going to call out a few people that joined. Ben, Brad, good to see you. Jim McDermott, thank you. I think it's good to see you again. Um, and a few other folks I will ask in a little bit once Stephan comes on, if you're new, raise your hand and say hi. Don't be shy. We're a very easygoing set of brothers here. Well, except Pat. Pat can be a real pain, but
I'm
he
actually
he
really
behaves
uptight.
himself on this show.
I'm a neurotic. I'm a total neurotic mess underneath all this, supposed calmness.
Underneath his calm white void that he's from that he's broadcasting from. So Pat, one thing you and I were chatting, as we do often, but I know we both love music, we love the arts, and we love filmmaking. And
Yeah.
I know there's a film that we're working on, and you're closely involved with, um, and it focuses a lot on community, and it's actually focused on someone who lives in the Minnesota area. So maybe just turn it over to you just to talk a little bit about this, because I think it weaves in a nice storyline to a community story. So I'd love to have you share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we are. So our film company, Riley Harder Pictures, we're just finishing up a documentary which we're going to have a big announcement about. I thought it would be by the time our show went live today, but it's not quite. Within a couple of days, we're going to be announcing our world premiere at a film festival. So more on that soon. But the film is called The Claw, and it's a documentary about the sort of infamous wrestler Baron von Raschke. And we grew up in New York, Dan, upstate New York, um, in the 70s, and there wasn't a lot of wrestling wasn't so much on the radar for us. I think growing up, I think you would agree with that. It ended up becoming bigger in the 80s when when it
Yeah.
started to go kind of big time. But in the 60s and the 70s, it was a really big deal here in the Midwest, and in other other areas too. But so the Baron von Raschke is from the Twin Cities. He's about 81 now, but he was sort of this part of the original band of wrestlers, professional wrestlers, who kind of started to really define the sport. Or the I don't know if we call it a sport. I guess we can. The
I think we
entertainment
should. Yeah.
category.
I mean, you might be
And
tackled by a lot of wrestlers if you don't call it a sport.
I know it is a sport. It's a sport. You
It
gotta
is
be
it
careful.
is very much a sport.
Um, and um, and the reason I was so to take a couple steps back, this project has been going on for, believe it or not, about 10 years. Speaking of perseverance, our directing partner, Philip Harder, who we've had on the show a few weeks ago. So he started this project with actually the Baron's son, Carl, and they started a Kickstarter on this project. I don't know, literally about 10 years ago, and have been working on this just passion project around chronicling the story about the Baron, Carl's dad, but more interestingly, just broadly about that kind of whole wrestling world and that community. And and as we've been finishing the final cut of it, I saw the most recent cut of it last night, kind of doing final notes. And the thing that really resonated with me is I was watching it and I've been thinking about the themes of it. It's this incredible story about community and family and how those things intersect. And that's what the movie really ends up being about. So that early world of wrestling was, it was like almost like the punk rock days for us in the 80s and 90s, where, it was kind of town to town, thing. And there was events and promoters. And, if you weren't out on the road and if you weren't working, you weren't getting paid, um, so there was this incredible community that kind of worked together to create this spectacle. And this was such a big part that served many families in the Midwest, where this is the family entertainment was on the weekends around this. And then what becomes interesting in the movie is sort of that overlay of family too. And what's fascinating about the documentary is the Baron, who's this super villain in wrestling. He's like actually the nicest guy in the world, and has a suburban family at home here in the Twin Cities, and totally normal guy. And so this movie kind of goes into that world of kind of life versus work and community and the theater of it and the connection to it. And as we make our way through the story, we start to see how these wrestlers as a family, including like Andre the Giant and, Jesse Ventura and, Mad Dog and all these incredible wrestlers, how they are still so connected as this incredible group that worked together to create what ended up becoming a gigantic, sport and industry,
Yeah.
in this world. And, you think of it where we're headed now, like there's a possibility that The Rock is going to run for president. Who knows? But I wouldn't rule it out. So we may end up,
Well, I definitely wouldn't rule
having
it
a
out. Yeah.
wrestler for president. We certainly had a wrestler for a governor here in Minnesota. Jesse Ventura was the governor here for
Yes.
4 years.
Yeah.
So don't underestimate how much that idea of kind of culture and those ideas people really feel connected to. You know what I mean? So anyway, it's been a really
Yeah.
interesting project, and as I've been meditating on it, and I just see a lot of kind of allegory in it to this kind of broader idea of we think about culture and community and how these things work, and how it really does end up becoming all these little itty bitty connections between people in a community together that hold that space together, and share those
Yeah.
values, and then kind of work together toward a common cause.
You that's awesome. And I was watching one of the latest cuts of the movie too, and just so drawn into the storyline. And I think that for so many reasons, it's so I won't repeat what you said, but yeah, all that's really a great, um, it really weaves into the story of community nicely, and tells a really beautiful story, and of a family too, which I think is really powerful. And family is such a part of community. And in some ways, we can actually call community family, right? They're a little bit interchangeable. Um, so, Pat, you started to touch on something that we'll talk about more with Stephan, but I want to kind of start to set up this conversation because it's really important. And, this is that concept and the need to rally around a purpose and a common set of values. And over the last few weeks, we've been having regular conversations, and we seem to continue to come back to a conversation around when we talk about culture, around culture fit, right? So attracting people based on culture fit. So some culture defined as sort of those meta. This is what we believe. A larger perspective versus sort of the smaller things that make up culture, which are really, really grounded in the values of an organization and the purpose of why they exist. And the importance, and I would say importance and the challenge organizations are going through right now, where we're finding a lot of CEOs, and Coke is a great example of a company, and there's a handful of others, many small ones we don't read about, where CEOs are really needing to take a stand, right? And a lot of change comes from organizations. And Pat, you and I always talk about this. There's an obligation and a responsibility for organizations, of course, to do better for their people, but also to do better for their communities, right? And society, and leave things a better place. And we're finding CEOs, some might be challenged with the decision, some don't even need to think about it. They know this is the right thing to do. But regardless, we're finding a lot of CEOs and organizations needing to take sides, understanding the repercussions that are going to come from that. And I think one argument that comes up is, by doing that, are we closing the door to the concept that all perspectives, all thought, all ideas are welcome here, or everybody is welcome to be a part of this organization? And I think we're getting to a place where, and then I'll turn it to you, Pat, that I believe that everybody's welcome, but we do have a core set of values and we have a core purpose, and you need to be able to rally around that. You need to believe in our values. You need to live them. You need to breathe them. You can have all of your own opinions, a different perspective. So we're not trying to find people who look like us and act like us, think like us, but we're trying to find people who believe like us, who believe what we believe, who can, give their all and live our values daily. And that's the type of people we want to hire and bring onto our organization, and that leads to incredible culture. But Pat, what are your thoughts around that? Because this is a big change happening right now across organizations, and a lot of senior leadership and CEOs are having to go through this thought process.
Yeah, I think you have to think that way. I think if you're a leader, and just to take a quick step back, right? We know we're living in one of the most kind of polarized times in this country in terms of different beliefs and different kind of life views or culture views, and that is what it is. This country's been through this before. This is the first time, and it's definitely in a very polarized state right now. And so I think if you're a leader of a company and you're trying to clearly define a culture and, like you said, really define a mission and purpose, I don't think you can try to say, okay, how do I design this in a way that I don't offend anybody? I think or I just make this attractive to everybody. I don't think you'll be successful with that. I think people do want to feel energy. They want to feel connection to their work. So I think you kind of have to just let those kind of meta concepts go. And then you just need to do the work to think about, what does this organization do? What gets us out of bed in the morning, and articulating that mission and articulating a vision of where you're going, and then building, like you said, a set of values that support that, and then eventually expected behaviors that fall into those values. I think that's really the only way that you can work. But then getting to our kind of topics, strength becomes really important, because that may feel a little risky, but I think I just think you have to think that way. You have to operate that way. And I think the companies that you just described, whether it's Delta or Coke or whatever, who are really leading with a position, it will, in my opinion, serve them really well over the long term. And especially the people that work at those organizations are going to feel a connection. That's my thoughts on that.
I love it.
There he is.
Perfect. Stephan, how's it going,
Hey guys,
man?
how are you doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
Perfect timing. You just kind of you come right in when the
It's like,
right when we need you.
boom.
Nicely done.
It's amazing what
Good.
technology can do nowadays.
I know. We're beaming you in. That's my new thing. It's beaming people in. Stephan, I gave a little intro. I know you weren't on earlier, but so we praised your name, praised the People First community. I read, and I'll just read it again. You know, it's a grassroots community of conscious leaders and HR rebels building a better workplace together. And the together word is is really important. And you know, Pat and I have been talking about the power of community, the power of strength, and the power of perseverance, and how important that is. So we're going to jump in. We only have 30 minutes, but before, let us know who you are, what you're all about. Give us your elevator pitch, Stephan.
Sure. All right. So I'm sure that by now, just hearing me, you can probably guess that I'm a native from France. I've been in the US for close to 20 years now. I have a passion for the human experience in the workplace, and I really believe in the power of community. So what I do with the People First community is just something on the side that I've been very passionate about, and my day-to-day job is I'm the senior director of guides and client services at a company called Live Guides, which is a breakthrough solution for organizations to support the emotional well-being and the health of the people through peer-to-peer guidance and coaching, which, as mental health is a big topic nowadays, that's pretty exciting to be part of an organization like this one.
Yeah, that's great. You know, and love the work you do, and your you know, you also do a podcast on a regular basis, and run virtual events, and just you're very dedicated to the change movement, as we call it, and making work a better place ultimately, and inspiring change. So, and we love that we're radical and you're a rebel. Works out. The radical rebels. We might have to start a band. I don't know. Do you play anything? I never even do you play any instrument, or you could just sing too? Give you a mic. Give you a mic. And just
neither of them, unfortunately. No, I'm a very bad singer, and I can't even play one instrument at all.
All right. Well, you can dance on stage, maybe. Didn't the Mighty Boss Tones have a dancer? It's all he did was dance.
Public Enemy.
Sure, yeah.
That's right. Yes, yeah.
After a few drinks, I'll try and dance.
Okay, we'll work that out. Well, good. It's so good to have you on. You know, and I just quickly state to the community, you know, we were pausing a bit for the first couple of days this week.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, just you know, wondering if we want to do the show, go live, because it was unknown, right? And we wanted to it might have been a moment to not say anything, and we were, of course, happy that of the outcome. And you know, Stephan, and I think shortly after that, you know, you were the first person I reached out to, knowing that I just really wanted to bring you on and chat about this. Number one, you have activism in your blood. It's clear to me, and you're committed to what you do. You believe in community, and community was such a big part of what brought us to this place, which is we can celebrate for this moment, but we know we have a lot more work to do. So I guess my first question for you is, you know, thinking about the power of community, the power of activism, the power of the collective, right, of individual ideals and opinions coming together. What can we learn from that, and how can we apply that concept to organizational culture and to HR? You know, what can an organization learn from this incredible moment that we've just lived through? And then how can we start to better ourselves within our organization?
It's a great question. I think one big lesson is that it's the responsibility of everyone to educate people on this particular issue, but just any like social issue in general. I really believe that organizations have a key place to role in our society. to create awareness of those issues, to educate the people. They have control over the employees on what information they disseminate, what kind of training they provide to the people. And training doesn't have to be just technical about a role. Training can be about being a good citizen, being a a socially responsible individual. It doesn't have to stop at after college, or you can still be educated and can still learn while you're working in the company. So the big lesson for me really is the leaders have, I believe, a social, a moral, and a civil responsibility to create a space where they can have debate, they can have conversations around those issues, how it affects the people, how it affects the employees' families. And you cannot just close the door about what's going on outside of work when you come to work. So for me, that's probably the biggest lesson.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, if you think of just the order of events over the last year, I mean, and that's just why we've gone through such it's going to take years to gain a full perspective of what we've gone through, and who knows what's in front of us. But a pandemic, and then to go through this, these extreme racial justice, kind of transitions situations, and it's and those two things just stacked, and it framed everything was framed in such a new way. And then also I was just thinking about how technology factored into this so much too. It's that visibility, it's this idea of evidence and truth, more and more supporting viewpoints, like you said, right? So we're working. I mean, if we're good, in my opinion, if we're good humans, we have a life of work to understand. And understand that we're never going to completely understand everything, and that we're going to evolve and change, and we just have to kind of accept that. And we also have to connect with community and work hard to understand other points of view. I mean, this is sort of in the spirit and tradition of democracy at its very idea, and it's not a passive activity. And this will be a continuum. So I mean, I agree with you so much. One of the big learnings from this is. The boundaries between work and life have really been removed,
yes.
And then with that, there's these things cutting through that are just we have to engage with. We can't just say, nah, that's something else. We don't talk about that here. No, it's the fabric of our work and life, and it's such a unique time to reimagine everything. We have to just we all as a community have to really work hard to reimagine how we can serve our people and serve our organizations and serve our communities well.
Right. And there's no longer boundaries or like very well-defined limits of work and life, as you said, Pat. It is working from home or working from anywhere. The personal and professional lives are blended. So that's from an employee perspective, and leaders have just to embrace it. But it's not just allow people to working from home; it's the ability to support them and encourage them to be activists, to be vocal about their own emotions as well, right? Because you can't, if you really want to be productive and to be engaged at work, you want to have like a clear mind. And if leaders don't address those issues with the people, you're going to have some loss of productivity. I mean, that's just basic principle, even though I don't even know why it was not realized before, but it's just very obvious to me.
Yeah. We, and Stephan, I know you talk about this often as well. We talk about humanizing the workplace, right?
Yes.
And it's, and what do we mean when we say that? It's by in face value, we mean what we mean, but in practice, what that means is taking the good with the bad, taking the tough emotions, the tough conversations, listening, respecting, and two words that I want to just bring up. It's empowerment and accountability, and I think these are really powerful words. And when we think about how community can work together and apply that to organizations, if we empower our people to do the right thing, not just to live the values, but there's an empowerment to speak out when you see values not being lived correctly, and there's an accountability associated with that, right? And again, just to get real direct here, we know what happened in this last in the George Floyd trial was police officers came to the stand, right, one after the other, saying this was wrong. I don't think there was a single one, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there was a single one that came to the stand and said this wasn't wrong. And so now that's changing things, right? And it's the right thing to do, and that does take strength, which we're going to get to as the next topic. But so I guess a question now would be, how do we better empower our people and build a culture of accountability? Because we don't talk about it too often as we build culture. Or if we do, it's on a poster. But let's get to the heart of it. I mean, how do we do that? Put you on the spot here.
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, it's up to everybody. And again, leaders define the framework and the space within the organization. So it starts with the top, obviously. But the first thing is, hey, I, as a leader, I fucked up on this part, right? I take responsibility. I acknowledge that I just messed up, right? And this is what I learned from it. Then just be very vulnerable about, failing, about doing things wrong, and just acknowledging those, and try to show the example to the people on how you can move forward with that. Now, obviously, what happened with George Floyd was much more tragic than just missing something or just doing a task in the wrong way. That's not the same at all. But the whole point is we have to own our own mistakes, right? And if you create an environment where people feel good about even just the idea of failing, they're not afraid of it, right? They're going to experiment. They're going to try things on their own. They don't need to get the green light from their boss, because they know that even if they mess up, even if that doesn't work well, they will be supported and even applauded because they took initiatives. So if you create that environment, then people will feel empowered, right? So it starts with vulnerability, accepting the idea of failure, because it's not even the idea of failure. Is if you try something, you're going to learn from it, whether you succeed right away or you don't succeed right away, but you're going to learn from it. So it's a learning opportunity. It's not something that is going to stay with you the rest of your life. Oh, you're going to have a sign in the back, oh, you're a loser, you're a failure. No, it's not that. It is, you're a learner. You just keep trying and trying and trying.
Yeah. I love that.
And I was going to just to jump in. One of the things that that's such a great input, and one of the things that's hard when you to hold the space to experiment. I think what I'm trying to say is this: trying to do something that's risky. Risky is the wrong word. That's a path toward a new idea. The way it tends to feel at the individual level, that feeling, I always talk about that kind of the way ambiguity feels, because when you're in that journey toward an idea and I don't know if it's going to work, but it's a really hard place to hold, or to be, for many people. I mean, myself included. I've been a creative my whole life, whether building a business or doing arts. And I know that when you're really starting to move down toward a new idea, or you're trying to break a ground, it really feels kind of crappy, Just scary maybe is the word. I don't know if it's scary. I just feel unsettled.
Yeah.
And so there's another piece there too, I think, which is helping people identify that I think that feeling is okay, and because we need to get used to what that feels like to carry that forward. And there's just a lot of strength. I guess it gets to your strength word, Dan. A lot of strength required to really kind of carry those ideas forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably even just a different debate, but the problem is when you go to school, you're sort of brainwashed because you have to succeed. Like if you have issues, if you have troubles learning at school, you're not going to succeed. That's what we put in our kids' heads right away. So for me, especially when you, as a leader, again, when you hire fresh graduates from college or grad schools, that everything that you learned at school was just BS, or maybe not BS, but sort of just change your mind. be be risk averse. Don't be afraid of trying experimenting, right? Don't be a risk averse. Just so everything that you learned at school, forget about it. This is, here is a place where you're going to be empowered. You're going to feel encouraged to try a few things. What I want to get from you, though, is that if things don't work out the way you want them to work out, you've got to tell me, if I'm your boss, your supervisor, what you learned from it. That's all what matters to me. It's not necessarily the outcome, but what I want to learn is what you learned on your end. Even if you do succeed, I want to understand what you learned from the experiments. So it's very different from trying to work towards a very specific goal, because we all know that, like in most of the work that we do, there's no black and white. Right, there's always a gray area, and what success is may look different from somebody else as well, right? So if you build a software, obviously you want the UX experience to be great, the interface to be user friendly. You don't want to have any bugs on it. So those are very easy things to identify, but the user experience in itself is very subjective, right? So the bugs are one thing, the way that the software is functioning is one thing that's pretty black or white. But as far as the way people are going to respond to it, it's very subjective. Right, so you cannot say that, oh yeah, I succeeded, or he succeeded in that part because, that's the way I wanted him to do it, while somebody else may have just a different perspective.
Yeah, it's well said, and I think this is, we're talking about strength, and I kind of want to just pose a question, and Stephan, you and I were chatting days ago about this, and I loved your perspective on this, so I'll kind of set it up and then love to hear your thoughts. But so we're in a time, and Pat and I talked about this a little bit earlier, where organizations and CEOs in particular are needing to make decisions and really cement, this is what we stand for, this is our purpose, these are our values, right? And reject hate, reject racism, reject things that do not align with their values at the expense, right, of customers, clients, bad press, you name it. And we know organizations, especially larger ones, profits are important. There's executive boards, they're public companies, stockholders, shareholders. So I guess my question for you is, it takes strength to do the right thing, but doing the right thing should give us strength in the long run. And you talked about the power of transparency, meaning taking aside, if you're being open and honest, this is who we are, this is what we believe, that's in fact a much better place to be as you're attracting new people and as you're building culture and you're onboarding people and existing people. So talk to me a little bit about that, because this is a big change we're seeing. And as a lot of CEOs, maybe some who will be listening to this broadcast, or executive leaders who are trying to think, where do we stand? Do we just wait it out? Do we just sort of bridge, stay on the cusp? So what are your thoughts on this? Because I really loved your perspective when we were chatting a few days ago.
So first of all, I really believe that the change that has already started, the only way for the change to carry on is if there's a collective and community approach around it. We cannot just do it in silos in our organizations or just individually. It takes a community of people to make it happen, because the more pressure you put on the decision makers, whether they're politicians, they are business leaders, or like school leaders, because I was talking about schooling before. Like if you put a more collective and community pressure, things are going to change, because there would be no other way around it, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, all of us individually have values, and as a leader, I really believe more and more, and that's why I'm a huge advocate of conscious capitalism, is you have to make a stand. You have to stand by values. So you have You have your own values as a person, and you have the organization's values. Hopefully, those are aligned, right? Especially as a leader. I mean, I don't know how you cannot be aligned with your company's values and your personal values. Otherwise, there's a problem. But you've got to be vocal about it. Because again, I really believe that there's a sense of social and civil responsibility for organizations and for leaders to make a stand, and this should not happen. And when things like George Floyd or other social unrest and injustice that has resurfaced over the past few years, the polarization of politics and so forth, I think again it's the responsibility of leaders to create the space for the people to debate, to be educated, to be aware of other people's perspectives and feelings. Now, there are some perspectives and some feelings and values that should not be tolerated in organizations, clearly, right? But let's say that's a very specific case of racism and discrimination happens in your organization. You cannot just leave it out the door or fire the person who caused the issue. You have to bring people together and address why did it happen? Why did we somehow let this happen because we're not preventive enough? So this happens. Now we need to be proactive and avoid, that it would happen in the future. And in order to do that, again, that comes from the leader, but you need to bring people collectively together to address it, to discuss it, and then to come up with solutions. And it can be like a sort of a chart or a constitution where everybody buys into and signs it, right? I think it's a good start with that. It's not about having something in the employee handbook where discrimination is not tolerated, right? It's more about like a human constitution, a value or a constitution of values that people have to sign in. And if they don't behave by those values, it's a clear way for them to just be fired or be let go, right? It's not just like a law or legal violation. It's a value violation.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I would almost describe it as it's like a social contract for an organization, right? I mean,
exactly. Here's a social contract. Yes.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Yeah.
I personally don't believe in employee handbooks. I think I understand the legal, side of things, but yes, it's a moral and social contract. Yes, these are our values. If you decide to come to the organization, it's because you know what our values are. We expect that your values are aligned with our values, right? And you have to live by those values. And if you don't live by those values, it's a ground for, some sort of punishments. Action.
Yeah, and I think that I agree. The employee handbook is, while there are certainly some legal reasons to have them, it is this snapshot that you never look back. You're like, I wonder how I should behave in this moment. Let me go to the employee handbook. So, and I keep coming back to we need to empower our people, and there's a level of accountability that needs to exist. I mean, everything that you're talking about is all about empowering people to live the values, and when it's not happening, to get involved, right? Being just a bystander and watching, values being tarnished or being, not held up, is not a place we want to be. And if you're doing that because you feel like you're not empowered to speak up, that's a leadership problem, right? And that has to be fixed. And I think this is one of the biggest opportunities we have in organizations is empowerment and making sure our leaders, and including our leaders, need to also be humble enough to say, I got this wrong. I should have spoke up here. I should have done this differently. I didn't empower my team enough to speak up. And when a value is under attack, I use that, it's a harsh word, but I'll use it. It's also okay to check in to see why, and if someone's going through something and personally in their life, and just being able to be ready to quickly have that conversation. What's going on? This isn't acceptable, but how can I help, right? Is there something that we're not doing? Is there something that we can support you with? And I'm not talking about an act that's just unacceptable. I'm talking about something that's softer, that's just going against our values. And I think we also need to be ready to have those type of softer conversations, but conversations of how can we help, not this is unacceptable. If you do it again, you're out the door, right? And so I think that's a balancing act too, and that requires a level of leadership that will. My hope is that's as we humanize work, we need leaders that know how to communicate with humans, right? And have those types of conversations.
Right. And I really believe that, one of the responsibilities of any organization is, so you want to train and you want to teach your employees to be good in their jobs. But I think, we need to teach them how to be good citizens as well. And it starts with what happens in the organization. The bystander concept is very interesting to me as well, because now with what happened, unfortunately, with George Floyd is, you have some people around, and some people were very scared about even just going to the cops because of, fear of being arrested. And others use their phones to record the tragic scene. And hopefully, luckily, because of that, we were able to get it out, right? I mean, who knows what would have happened if it had only been, like on the body cams of the police. I don't know if the police would have released any information. So as a witness or a bystander, when you see things happening in your organization, you should feel empowered. You should feel free and safe to talk about it, to intervene, right? But it's not for everyone, right? Not everyone will be willing to actually step up and intervene into the situation. They may want to report this to the boss, to talk to a colleague, talk to HR, but you need to be able to create that safe environment where people can be more than bystanders. They can be active, trying to solve a situation that happens.
Yeah, that's right, and I think that's there's work to be done there, and I think I love one thing you said is, if you're not comfortable intervening, and that's okay, we want you to be comfortable, at least talking about it, bringing it up, letting somebody know who might be comfortable intervening. And I think that, and that's empowerment, right? And I think we don't expect everyone to be a superhero and be able to do the right thing at the right moment, say the right thing at the right moment. But we do expect people to sort of understand this is conflicting with what I know our values to be in this organization and my personal values, hopefully, and this isn't right. And so I think that's just an opportunity as we build great culture, respectful culture, where organizations need to spend a lot of time thinking about that and really making sure it becomes how we live every day, right? That empowerment lives, and it's the right thing to speak up.
Yeah, something that's still stays with me even after 3 years. A few years back, I was speaking with a colleague of mine. We were just coming from a customer lunch, and we were just talking about politics in general. And he's African American. He was a very successful CEO, sold his company for a lot of money. Very well educated, in his 60s, two children, Stanford and then I think MIT, so highly educated children as well. And he was telling me that being African American, he feared for his kids. And I thought to myself, I don't know. They're all highly educated, Stanford, MIT. They're going to be well off in their lives. I don't think they should be scared. And then we're talking about politics, and something that he said was that like racism, discrimination never went away. From the 60s, and then even when Obama was elected, it was just there and hidden, right? Because it was not politically correct to talk about it. Then we had a president that just allowed all those like feelings and emotions, anger, come out, and just became like a social norm. It was okay just to have those behaviors, but they never went away. They were always somehow latent and hidden. And that's something that still stays with me. Like pretty much every day, I still think about it. And for me, I thought, well, how ignorant was I just to have even that feeling from my white guy straight guy perspective, for that majority perspective. And I feel ashamed, but at the same time, I saw this as a way to learn and really be more open and really be more trying to be more empathetic, even though I can't understand, I can't put myself into the shoes of, someone from a minority, because I really understand it. I mean, even myself as an immigrant, I felt some level of discrimination when I moved to Canada first and then to the US, but never to the extent of what our minorities are suffering here. But I think we all felt at some point some, intolerance, some discrimination in some way or another. We just have to be aware of it. We just have to understand that it's not our perspective doesn't necessarily is the right one, or doesn't dictate how other people might think of or see different situations.
Yeah, we really do have to work hard. And this is, I think we talked about this earlier. I mean, our life's work is to engage in ongoing conversations to better understand the world, and especially to better understand it through different perspectives and experiences. Yes. And, we should never take our experience for granted. I just last fall, I went and had a tour of a area. It was a Native American story about what had happened, and sort of like what had happened to the Native culture here in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, and it was a tour where there was 2 or 3 Native guides brought us in. It was like right near the airport here in Minneapolis, and talked about the experiences to Native people, what had happened like in the 1880s, and this massacre and the terrible things that had happened as they were coming in, and what this intersection of like the Mississippi River and also the Minnesota River, where they came together, and that's like an origin story for Native Americans. And I was there in that space and hearing this story, and it was like another layer of understanding, where it's just like, man, we take this whole idea of the city as we think about this in Minneapolis, St. Paul. We basically just stole it from other people and built a city here and did terrible, terrible things. And it's just that. And now, like you said, I carry that perspective with me now. Whenever I look at the rivers now, whenever I think of anything in the city, sort of the natural beauty that's there, it's like there's, this is a place that meant something else entirely to a different culture before us, and we're just, just another chapter in the human experience. And we have to work hard, really work hard, because that's not what they teach you in high school. They don't even teach you those stories in college. You have to work hard to find those stories, and your brain just gets bigger. I don't think it's bigger. It just opens up to these ideas, and it builds that empathy and builds that kind of connection.
And going back to our earlier conversation about the role or the responsibility of leaders and organizations, many organizations provide some volunteering hours to their people, to the employees. You can just volunteer in your nonprofit of choice or your charity of choice. But I think we should even put more emphasis on this, and really make it like almost as a mandate, as an obligation for employees to do that. Because when you volunteer in organizations, you're gonna work alongside with the people that you're going to serve. You're going to learn a lot of different things. I remember back when I was in Indianapolis, one of the nonprofits that we supported was a house that welcomes women and children, victims of abuse. And it was, first of all, it was amazing to see the resilience of those people. It was just outstanding that they were really fighting, and especially the moms, for their children's future. But the fact that there was a very strong sense of community, because they were all on this together. There were people like us coming in and helping them. It was around Easter that we did this, so we did like Easter egg hunts for the kids, and it was just amazing to see that. But it just gave me the opportunity to just open up my eyes to like another set of the population that I didn't know of. And even if you had like a rotation on the different nonprofits or charities that you support, you can just educate, again, create awareness without necessarily having to go in a class and listen to someone speaking about a topic. Just put people in the action on the ground. Right. And you can learn many things. So whether it's supporting like Indian or Native communities, or it's like the soup kitchen or whatever it is, there's so many opportunities for people to get with other types of population that would never be with if they would just stayed within their traditional work or life environments, right? That's how you get people educated. That's how you create a sense of community and awareness on everything that revolves around us.
Well, thank you
Good
for
stuff.
sharing those stories, and Pat, for you sharing that story. Stephan, I'm just going to ask one final question. We're at the hour, but just to bring us out, this is the idea around perseverance, and change takes time, right? Community activism, continuing to stay focused on what you believe, fighting for what you believe takes time, right? Everything that brought us to this moment this week took a lot of time and a lot of people's energy and commitment and passion and hard work. So I guess I leave you with one question to leave for us, or to answer for us, is where do organizations start when we think about the change that we see, the North Star that we believe in? We know it's going to take a while. It might not even happen in our tenure, but give me a 1 minute. Where should we start? Someone's listening. I see an opportunity to change, to reshape our values, to reshape our purpose, to live our values more effectively, efficiently. What do we do? Where do we start?
It's a good question. The first thing that comes to mind is on a, let's say, a monthly cadence or quarterly cadence, pick one social topic and have a town hall or forum about it, and bring people together and really discuss and debate that topic, and how as an organization and how as individuals can we contribute to address and solve that issue. Right. I think that if you bring people collectively around one main topic, like a controversial topic, even like we talked about George Floyd, and then you create the dialogue, you bring people together, and collectively, I think we can solve those issues. It's going to take some time, as you said, but it's just bring people together around a special issue and get people to talk to each other. That's the most important thing. Get
a safe place, I think, and that's a key thing too. I love that idea, and bringing them together and giving them a safe place, their voice. It's an open place. It's a place where say what's on your mind, right?
Yes.
And that's that transparency and trust that you talk about too. I mean, it's better to be open with what you believe and what you stand for, what you represent. That's going to build better culture in the long run. So, Stephan, thank you so much. You can find, I know, Stephan Vincent on LinkedIn. People First Community. It's People-First Community. Follow him on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for your time and talking about this really important topic today. Like I said in the beginning, we have a moment to celebrate, but it only reinforces the hard work that we have left to do and to continue to do, and reinforces the hard work that it took to get us to this moment. So just really appreciate the conversation and your candor and your great ideas. So thank you.
It was an honor. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Stephan.
Great.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you to the community, as always. Love you guys. See you all next week. Bye.
Bye.